Welcome, patrons, and welcome back to another Hahren'al, my series where I sit down with other Bioware content creators and talk about stuff. And Jinx is too, apparently. Today I deliver on a promise that is months old, as I was able to sit down with co-host of the old Wonders of Thedas Podcast and the current Adventure Game Engine Interest Series, or AGEIS Podcast. If you don't know them, Reyn and Jessica are an amazing couple that I consider to be the experts on all things about the Dragon Age role-playing tabletop game. So if you have been wanting to know more about it and how to play, this is the video for you. We also plan on doing a second part to this where we go through a small campaign with the character I created in this video, but it's going to be quite a while before that gets on its way to YouTube, so for now, please enjoy this. As a side note, I was having some mic issues while recording this, so I apologize for my mic quality that is going to be jumping around quite a lot during this video.
Okay, so before we get too crazy, what I brought you guys on here today, and what you have graciously come in to describe to me is, what is the Dragon Age role-playing game?
Well, to start, it's a lot of fun. At least we think so.
Yes.
We've been through one campaign, but it did take us to level 20.
Yeah, it was a long one.
It was
wow.
It was fun. We had a campaign that took place in, I think maybe a couple of months after the Awakening expansion from Dragon Age Origins ended, and filled a little bit of the gap between I think during the campaign we heard about a Kunari occupation in Kirkwall.
Yes.
You know,
yeah, we heard something was going on.
Something about a champion.
We were kind of busy with our own nonsense, so that was a thing.
We had a lot of nonsense going on, which eventually culminated in quite a timeline shift, because we have a whole elven country growing in the Brazilian forest.
We made a nation.
Oh, hey!
It's pretty boss.
What'd you guys name it?
Brasilia, because, it's easy to do.
Yeah, wanted to be true, I guess, to the place's roots.
Yeah, I mean,
wouldn't that be great in Dragon Age?
Its roots.
Yeah, that's where I went there.
You didn't do that on purpose.
No, I totally did. Maybe did.
I hope for your guys' sake, when Dragon Age 4 rolls around, there will be an Elven Nation, so your game can merge into the actual canonical timeline.
Yes,
Thank God we're canon.
It's actually one of my favorite things about this nation is that it's run by 3 20-something young elven ladies. 3 young elven ladies who maybe just got out of college and all have weird anxiety issues around separate things, and the 3 of them are for some reason running a nation, and that's a choice that was made, and there's no going back.
They did punch down a guy who was claiming to be the elven god of vengeance.
We did do that. We are cosmically powerful, but we are still 22-year-old kids with anxiety issues.
I wish Brasilia luck. Then there's a lot of drama in there.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff. We've already plotted some things for what's coming up with Inquisition, and the Chantry does not take very kindly to
us
stuff.
Yeah, we do a lot of things that are not very Chantry friendly, but fortunately, the moment that they would have probably come and wiped us out, other stuff starts to happen in other places that's eminently more dangerous.
There's this big hole that opens up in the sky.
The divine just explodes.
Yeah,
so.
The divine explodes, and so they're kind of busy with that.
Disintegrates.
And wouldn't you know it, in our canon, a Brazilian elf is
the Inquisitor.
Is the Inquisitor.
Hey,
he wasn't
so they don't romance Solus.
Don't know.
Well, Solus unfortunately is not interested in Sinclair.
Yeah. Also, Solus is a goober.
That's canon.
We're going to take him to Brasilia, and he's just going to sigh wistfully the whole time.
I feel like he would have strong positive feelings about the character that I played, and she would just be so irritated with him at all times. He would just drive her up the wall with this, wistful, passive-aggressive nonsense.
So how long have you guys been playing, this one game?
This game,
I
think it took 3 yeers.
Yeah.
But we did have to take a hiatus for a while, because half the game, most of the at least about the first half of the campaign was pre-written stuff. It was A lot of it was stuff that I had borrowed from some fan creations.
Kind of doctored lately.
Stuff that I had made myself. But for the most part, it was actually pre-written adventures with a couple of flares thrown in.
Yeah. And then the second half you had to write entirely yourself, so you had to take a few months off.
Yes.
But I think we started before we got married. I think it was in 2014.
It was a while ago.
Like, right around when the Pathfinder campaign was starting to wrap up. Yeah.
It was wild stuff.
So it was like 2014 to... We ended it in 2018.
Is that right?
Yeah. I think it was early 2018 we ended it.
I think you're right. Something around there.
But it was pretty good.
It took us a while, but we had lots of fun.
Man, props to you guys just for sticking it that long. I feel like every D&D group I try to get a part of, it's like, 2 months, man, we're dead. Everyone else is busy.
It's the worst feeling.
That is super sad. That is one of those things that Reyn's campaign seems to be really good about. Like, we've had a couple of campaigns that ended up stopping or are on hiatus currently, but you have a surprising hit ratio for completions. Like,
I try
multi-year completions. So, Reyn's just real good at this.
Well, thank you.
I'm just saying.
I try my best. I want to tell a good story.
You do tell good stories.
Dragon Age
We're about to tell a great story.
Dragon Age is a great place to tell some good stories.
Truth.
How did you guys get into like the Dragon Age RPG rather than like all like Pathfinder, D&D, anything else?
Dragon Age specifically, I found it at Gen Con one year. This was
That would have been like 2013.
Maybe even a little sooner than that, because I remember we had it kind of collecting dust for a while and we hadn't tried it
probably
for a while.
2012 then.
But at one Gen Con, I found the first box set for Dragon Age. This is back when Dragon Age came in boxes, which is something else.
Classic. So I was passing the... I had played Dragon Age Origins and Dragon Age 2, and I had enjoyed myself quite a bit. So when I saw that there was a tabletop role-playing game, and there was just like a box with role-playing stuff in it for like $20, I was like, yeah, sure, give me that. I'll take it. We didn't actually, and of course it did that unfortunate thing where you buy a cool-looking game and then it sits on your shelf for a couple of years. Yeah, well, we got really heavy into Pathfinder.
We got real heavy into Pathfinder, y'all.
Yeah. We fell far. We delved too greedily and too deep.
We delved 20 levels and 10 mythic tiers. And 18 player characters. That was anyway.
Wow.
Anyway,
you're a masochist.
I was very happy to try something a little simpler after that. So which is what Dragon Age was. Dragon Age was perfect for that.
Yeah, and I loved it because it's simple. Like, and I love this about all the Age products. Is that they are simple, but they're also highly customizable. And I feel like that is where it differs from like D&D 5 and D&D 4. And I'm not really the biggest fan of either of those. More so 5 than 4. But like, I like a game where I can have some heavy customization ideas into my character. Like, I can combine different talents in this case, especially like, different specializations and different spells. I get to sort of determine where my character goes in a more holistic way than I think... The vibe is more holistic than I think D&D can provide.
A little bit.
Okay.
It's pretty organic how your characters level up, and it's a lot of fun. It's very easy to pick up, but it's definitely, like Jessica said, got depth for folks who want it.
Yes.
So if you're a little baby noob, like you've never done a tabletop thing before, would you recommend this like for beginners or?
Oh, absolutely.
This game was actually designed with that in mind.
Yes. It's perfect. It's a perfect thing for beginners, especially those who are going from video games into tabletop, because then the Dragon Age setting really provides a comfy sort of set of training wheels to keep you feeling like you're grounded.
Now, I know very little about like the history of this. Like how old is this, or when did it come about?
This game, the role-playing game itself, is actually like I'm kind of surprised that it's back from early 2010, I believe. I believe it came out in January that year. It was hot on the heels of Dragon Age Origins, which was November 2009, I think.
I think so, yeah.
It was, Bioware actually approached Green Ronin, the folks who made the role-playing game, because, as you can probably imagine, a lot of the folks at Bioware were big RPG nerds. They had worked on things like Baldur's Gate, which was just Dungeons and Dragons in a computer.
Baldur's Gate is so good.
And they had done like Knights of the Old Republic and
and Neverwinter Nights.
And so they were understandably pretty stoked in the role playing scene. So they thought that it would be really cool if this Dragon Age game that was kind of supposed to be them going back to their roots with things like Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter Nights. What if it had its own tabletop role-playing game to go with it so that people could explore Thedas even when they're not in the video game? So they approached Green Ronin and the folks at Green Ronin, particularly Chris Pramus, who was the one who penned most of the basic building blocks of the system, was already a big fan of a bunch of BioWare's work, so they were here for it. He already kind of had some ideas in the works, so he was not expecting them to turn into a full game, but they did. When they designed the game, Chris Pramus and Green Ronin decided on a couple of things. The game was going to first be released in box sets. Which is how we found it. I found the first 2 box sets, and
it's reminiscent of the way D&D was originally sort of.
Exactly. D&D used to come in boxes, so this is a very classical way to kind of release a role-playing game. Their original plan was that every box was going to cover 5 levels of play. So the first box was levels 1 to 5 and contained like an adventure for characters of that level, contained character options that were very rudimentary and starting out. It included a lot of the bare bones of the rules and things that wouldn't necessarily come into play later in the game. He also partially wanted to make it a box because a box makes it look like a game to a lot of folks. Is when people think about like a tabletop game, they might think like, here's a box of cards or a box that contains a board game in it. But if you hand them this like 568 page book, then they're like, excuse me?
Which, weirdly enough, that's how you buy it now, right? Like, you have to buy just the book.
Right. How much of this is game?
Do I have to read all of this before we play?
I didn't know there was homework.
Exactly. And the box was also super convenient because they could put like a player's guide, a game master's guide, a map of the original one included a map of Ferelden, and they also included a dragon die. So which is important. Dragon die are very important. We will explain those later.
Okay.
He decided that the game was going to be friendly to newer role players, so he made it nice and simple, but exciting so that it's easy to pick up and then keep going with. While he was designing it, he wanted to stay simple, to help that last point, keep it straightforward for everybody, so that folks who are brand new to role-playing games don't have a lot of stuff that they necessarily need to hold on to. He also went about when creating new rules, kind of left a couple of things a little vague so that GMs could determine rules how they wanted to run the game, to keep things moving and keep it simple. And something that he determined rather quickly, and that the Bioware folks told him, was that not everything can come directly from the computer game, because it's a completely different medium, and computer games have strengths that tabletop RPGs don't have, and they can't really flex the same things. So, because like video games can, it's all those numbers that are flying across the screen, it's doing all that math for you. But with a tabletop RPG, you've got to do that math.
We don't want to do that math.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, those of us who like math play Pathfinder.
Exactly, Mathfinder.
Mathfinder.
I'm suddenly scared of Pathfinder.
That's fair. It's terrifying.
It's a wild game.
It's an objectively terrifying task trying to learn how to play D&D 3 or Pathfinder, anything in that mechanic. But that's part of what makes this makes the age system sort of so welcoming, is especially if you look at it in comparison to other systems. That said, Pathfinder's real good too, so can't get mad.
Well, that's level 2.
Yes, right. Yeah, exactly.
That's a next step kind of deal.
And when we say age system, what we mean is Dragon Age itself is, its own role-playing game. It's based off of these the building block, which is the adventure game engine, the age system. which they also use to run a couple of other role-playing games. That they started releasing afterwards. They kind of like took the Dragon Age system, made a couple changes, and made it kind of setting free so that folks could put their own fantasy settings on it. And then they started putting it in things like Blue Rose, which is romantic fantasy. And then they put it in Modern Age, which lets you do things like noir, or gothic horror, or historical campaigns, or things like that.
Or just Resident Evil 2.
Or Resident Evil 2, maybe some folks with a bunch of losers here are going to do, because that's fun.
So the Dragon Age game actually started all that, if I got that right?
Yes. Dragon Age is where it all began. Dragon Age is kind of the earliest iteration of the Age system. Does not necessarily mean that it's like better or worse. All of the Age systems kind of are tweaked so that they can fit a specific theme. And Dragon Age definitely has tweaks to fit the Dragon Age theme.
Oh, yes.
The only one I know off the top of my head is the Possession. I don't know if that's even in any others, but I know that's
that's
interesting.
That's a unique Dragon Age component, is the Possession issue.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Which is good because it's... that magic stat is a bit powerful. And this is one of those things that, like, hey, if you put all your points into magic, I mean, good luck.
Me, I love playing mages, so suddenly I'm like, oh no.
Just don't dump everything into magic.
Don't dump willpower and you'll be fine.
Okay.
I had a nice high willpower, and I staved off the occasional possession risk.
The occasional mishap.
Yeah, they'll happen. They will happen. The question is,
when?
Did you prep?
When will the dice betray you?
For me, the answer was frequently.
Oh. I will say though, like unlike the video game, like the possession mechanic, which we can get into the whole thing later, but like
it's a really nice like in the game, in the lore, like being a mage is supposed to be really dangerous, but you don't really like see it if you play a mage. So when you play the tabletop games, there actually is an element of danger, unlike the games, which I think is really neat.
Yeah, I liked that too. Even as I was playing a mage, I was like, I love that you're representing the danger here.
There is much danger.
That is true. Yeah, that is one thing to know about this game. The one thing about it that makes it a little bit less beginner friendly is that this is the Dragon Age version of the setting. And if you've played a Dragon Age game, you know that they are not light, happy, fun bunny fantasy games. Like, Mr. Nibbles Goes to the Store is going to end pretty tragically in a Dragon Age setting.
Especially if he's a tasty nug.
Especially if he's a tasty nug. I mean, like, he's going to get eaten by the good guys, and that's saying something. That's not a phrase I thought I was going to have to say today. But
here we are.
That's beside the point. Like, it's a dark fantasy setting. And characters, especially in the early levels, are more likely to die, I think, than characters in other more complicated games.
The rulebook itself says that you should probably tell your players to be ready to lose somebody.
Yep, be ready to lose a character.
Yay!
Coming from like the games of Dragon Age, where I feel like you get really super attached to like your PC and companions, going into like the tabletop gang, going,
oh, they're going to die though.
Yeah, it's like that. We got very lucky in that we only had one character death.
I tried really hard to kill you folks, but you are just a very good spirit healer.
I tried very hard. I've been playing healers for a while. I'm sorry I wrecked your plans.
We had one character death, and it was one of the most ignoble character deaths I've ever had.
Yeah, she died of a lyrium overdose in an alley.
Oh,
that's what she died of.
That sounds like one of those PSAs or something like that.
She
like,
was. To be fair, this character was irritating. Like the player we adore, the character was irritating enough to the other PCs that she was actively thrown out of a third-story window in as a living creature, while the rest of us were far away. We actually saw her get thrown out of a third-story window by one of the other PCs. Like, oh, I guess that's happening today.
And she survived that and then died in an alley.
She survived that and died of a lyrium overdose in an alley.
She got a bad hit.
She got a real bad hit.
She got a real bad hit.
So you mentioned that there's some things that that are different from the video game versus the RPG. Is there is it really just like the math behind it, or is there like something major, like it doesn't have blood magic or something?
The math is definitely a big one. Like the numbers in the video game reach hundreds and thousands.
Yeah.
You would you will never have to go that high in the role-playing game. I think the highest number I've ever seen was maybe a warrior's health got to like 180 or something.
Yeah. I think my mana got pretty high. Got
Your
up
mana
there
did
too.
get pretty high.
I got some pretty good mana at the end of that game.
Some good stuff.
But the numbers are much, much, much lower, which makes sense because nobody wants to have to pull out a calculator to play the game.
There's definitely blood magic, though.
Oh, yeah. Blood magic is a thing that you can do if you really want to. But, I don't think there's much of an actual penalty for it in the...
I mean, you pay health to cast spells instead of mana.
Yeah, but that's excellent because you can just choose to do that. The thing is, if you've got a good GM who's playing the setting correctly, you're going to have problems finding safe places to do that and people who aren't going to attack you on sight when you're doing that.
Correct.
And that's a very real part of the game.
Which is good
as well.
because the specialization itself is just very good.
It's so powerful.
Like, you just have more
It's
mana.
just stupid powerful.
You just have more mana than other folks because you can take your blood. Then the next degree is you can take your friend's blood.
And then the last degree...
The master degree is you can take your enemy's blood.
And turn it into more mana.
Turn it into mana to shoot fire at them.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
You know.
I feel like never mind. I had a question about the specialization, but I feel like that's going to be later down the line. I don't want to get out of order here.
You know.
Okay. So let's say because this is more true to life, I'm Katie. I just want to play the game now. I don't think the box sets really exist anymore unless you want to get like a collector's item. So how do you play? Like, how do you get to play the game now? What do you have to get?
Yes. Right now we have a core rulebook. Well, we don't have it. Green Running has it.
Well, we do have it.
I mean, we have it personally.
This is great.
This is good radio. But there is a core rulebook that originally they were going to do 4 box sets. When the 3rd box set took too long to make, they scrunched it down into 1 box set. So is 3 box sets. All of those have been collected into the core rulebook, which we've got behind us. It is it's well worn now that I'm looking at it.
Yeah, it's seen a lot of love.
Seen a lot of love. But that core rulebook contains everything that is Dragon Age. All the things that were, a lot of the things that were released in some of like the PDFs that they wrote for special characters or for an extra monster or two. They condensed it all into that core rulebook. So once you've got that core rulebook, you'll have everything that you need to get started. You can also get a GM's kit, which they released a long time ago, but they revamped when they got the core rulebook out. They have a special dice set that you can buy. That is the dice that are designed, I think, by Q Workshop, but they have like the Templar and Mage and like some Circle of Magi symbols on them. And I think 2 of them.
I think I've seen those. It's like black and white die.
Mm-hmm. And then they've got like 2 blood dragons on the other ones. They're really nice, and they recently did a redesign because some of the early ones were a little hard to read. I liked them. And most recently, they did come out with a book called Faces of Thedas that details important people from the Dragon Age universe. So they give you stat blocks and write-ups on people like, let's see, Lord Seeker Lambert. That's a winner.
We all love Lambert.
We love Lambert. We got Isabella. We got Iron Bull.
Cole's in here.
Cole is in
Krem's
here.
in here.
Yes.
And those are the 2 people I care about most.
They got 2 out of 3 of my boyfriends in there. They unfortunately did not include Fenris.
They didn't include Fenris?
No. They specifically...
Oh, I'm out.
they left him out specifically because he doesn't necessarily like help propel plots forward.
You could just say the word brood for
much.
5 straight minutes and you're
professional
pretty much...
brood. And I mean,
but no, they should have written like Delirium Ghost thing, like how that would work. Because I'm sure like you can have like some character that's like, I'm Fenris 2.0, like just whatever you want. I don't know.
Oh my god,
that's a missed opportunity.
They did take the opportunity.
Glenris.
They did take the opportunity in Cole's entry to write a background if you want to play a character who's like Cole.
A spirit possessing a body.
Yes. Goodness, what do they call it? It's real interesting, and they even wrote a talent just for it.
It's super
the
cool.
Incarnated Spirit. Right now, it's unclear if there's anything else that's in the works for the Dragon Age RPG line. The folks at Green Running have expressed interest in making an Inquisition book that would detail all the content that was introduced to Thedas in the latest installment of the series.
But getting that through Bioware at this day and age would be a challenge.
Those, it's a little unfortunate. When they started, Bioware like invited Chris Pramas up to like play the game for himself and get a look at some like early assets. They weren't even finished with the game when they let him see it at first. And so he wrote the game around the stuff that they gave him. Now BioWare's gotten very very
under new management.
Under new management, and Dragon Age team having to go over to like help Mass Effect Andromeda, and then get back to whatever it is they're working on right now.
Whatever could it be?
Because this is not Green Ronin's IP, whenever they write stuff or put stuff in a book, they have to send it to BioWare to get approval, and because
that takes a while.
It takes a while because it's not very high on BioWare's priority list because they're making a game right now, probably.
Yeah.
Or because role-playing games don't really make a lot of money.
Yeah. The labor of love.
If they want to, it's a labor of love, but if they wanted to make like lunchboxes and stickers, they'd sell a lot more of those and make lots of more money. But they want to make a role-playing game, and unfortunately, that also has a bit of an approval process because somebody has to get off the development staff, go read everything that they wrote down, and then send it back saying, "Okay, this is cool. Here, change this." So right now, it's unclear what more is coming, but they haven't said anything about there not being anything.
So at least there's that small, slim hope that there could be something.
Yeah.
There very well could be.
Wouldn't it be nice?
We'll be keeping our ears to the ground about it for folks in our show, and maybe we'll have to come back on and talk about it if more stuff comes along.
Indeed.
Another question I wanted to ask is there a large community of people that specifically really like this tabletop game, or not so much, or?
There is. It kind of comes and goes, especially as like new releases come around or news comes around. Especially, I'm certain that once the next Dragon Age game comes out, it's going to get a surge.
I believe that too.
Because people are going to want to play the game, and then when they're done with the game, they're going to want more Dragon Age. So they'll be like, "Hey, there's a role-playing game out. Why didn't I hear about this? Let's go play that."
We've been fortunate enough to get to hear from and meet a lot of the people who are really big fans of this IP and this tabletop game. And it's a really good community. Yeah. There are some really cool people in there, and we really have enjoyed just getting to know that community. Yeah. That's been a great time.
If you want to see it, on our old blog, Wonders of Thedas Podcast.wordpress.com, we have a resources for your game page, where we have collected all kinds of stuff that is fan-made for the Dragon Age role-playing game. And we've got like the Esoterica from Thedas, which added like encumbrance rules and building NPC rules.
We've got
organizations.
We got the Brazilian game setting.
Yes, we actually wrote out the setting, the history and the important people of the Brasilia campaign setting. If folks actually want to go. If folks want to hang out,
got some requests for that, and I was really touched that we got some requests for that.
Folks want to hang out in this cool elven pad where we grow our houses,
Yeah.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah. Right now, the Dragon Age community is kind of quiet, because we're waiting for what's next to come out of Dragon Age.
Yeah, this is the longest hiatus in between games, and it feels like it.
I say that like I've been a Dragon Age fan forever. Like it started in 2014. I have no places to get play. Oh.
So yeah, we're waiting along with the folks who are waiting along for the video game to hear anything else.
Yep.
And so
just stay positive. Yeah. Stay patient.
Gotta stay positive. We'll get there. We'll have some fun.
You said it's simple, so my task for you.
Okay.
How do I play? Give me these rules. Throw them at my face.
Sounds good. Let's see, we'll go straight to the core mechanics of any age game. So if you understand these, then you can play any age game. First thing you're going to want is, of course, you'll want character sheets. Those are free. You can print them off, and there are lots of cool fan-made ones if you want to get some. Mm-hmm. You're going to want 3 6-sided dice.
Yes, and one of them needs to be distinguishable from the other 2.
Because that one's called the dragon die. Mm-hmm. It's super important.
And if you're playing a different age game, it might have a different name, but in this case, dragon die.
Yeah, we call it the dragon die. We use that for special things down the line, but we can mention those as we go. When you're performing tasks in an age game, like in Dragon Age, many actions you can simply just do. If you go just going shopping, walking down a road, or talking to an NPC, generally doesn't require a lot of exertion. And you can just tell the GM that you do it, and the GM will narrate what happens. Mm-hmm. However, when you perhaps maybe someone's crossbow breaks, maybe you've got to hold a door to keep some darkspawn at bay. Maybe you've got to jump a chasm. Mm-hmm. But that's when we start getting the dice out. And so what we normally are going to be doing in Dragon Age is called ability tests. And there are a couple of different kinds of ability tests. Ability tests basically mean that you roll the 3d6s. The GM will tell you what ability and what focus is applicable to the roll. So you'll roll the 3d6s, add your ability, and if you have the focus that they call for, you get a +2.
Okay.
So, for example, say you wanted to punch a Genlock. That would be a dexterity brawling test.
And who doesn't want to punch a Genlock?
Exactly. So your character would walk up to the Genlock. You play her with roll 3d6s. You add those up, add their dexterity, and if they have the brawling focus, they get a +2. If it hits the target number, which in this case would be the Genlock's defense, then you punch the Genlock.
I like how you had them walk up calmly. Like,
I've had just enough.
I've had just about enough of you.
Maybe it was an open-handed punch.
That's a slap.
It's just a bitch slap.
Exactly. Dennis.
Go
home.
Is the Genlock named Dennis?
What?
Yes, Dennis the Genlock is...
I've been putting up with you.
I think Dennis the Genlock is an important creation that we need to not brush aside so quickly.
Well, let's just have all of these examples feature Dennis the Genlock then.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
have an emotional investment in Dennis the Genlock.
All right. Meeting or beating the target number in an ability test means that you succeed. If you roll lower, it means that you fail. Let's see. In those basic tests, you can, let's see, not necessarily, I guess you could use it for slapping Dennis. But the dragon die, in this case, does a couple of things. The dragon, whatever number the dragon die comes up on tells you how well you succeeded on a test. So, to carry out this example,
keep him.
if you succeed in slapping Dennis, but you only got maybe a 1 on the dragon die, however much damage you did, it wasn't very impressive. Maybe it didn't make a lot of noise.
Maybe you made a little noise when you did it.
Yeah,
like
maybe
no
you
one's
were just
impressed.
not very impressive when you did it. But if you rolled a 6 on the dragon die, you cartwheeled into it and slapped him down.
Yep.
And then you roll damage. But the GM might ask for the success on the dragon die, depending. If you maybe.
Usually not for Dennis slapping, but maybe if Dennis decided he wanted to jump a chasm.
Maybe your strength mighting to throw Dennis across a chasm. If you rolled a 1 on the dragon die, maybe he succeeded, but he has to grab the ledge on the other side to not fall into the chasm.
Or maybe he takes some damage because you threw him right on his sweet Dennis face.
But if you got a 6 on. If you get a 6 on the dragon die, then you throw Dennis clear across the chasm and there's no problems.
Dennis a light.
So the dragon die tells you how good you do something then?
Yes.
Or okay.
The GM will not always need it. Sometimes it's just good enough for the GM to know that you made it.
Yeah.
Which is usually the case for an attack roll. We don't necessarily need because those are going to come so fast.
Way too often.
You don't need to tell everybody just how well you slapped Dennis.
I mean, you can.
I mean, you could if you wanted to. That sounds like
Yeah, like, can you request the DM? Like, I want everyone to know that I rolled a 6 on the dragon die, so I slapped Dennis so beautifully.
Yes.
It's like a perfect handprint on
There
his
was
face.
there was a clap. There's
like-
a handprint left.
There's like meme
Everyone
horns
was
going on.
Timberlake.
It's just like 360 no scope. Pew, 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 pew. Like, it's beautiful.
Dang. I might have to include a Genlock in this next adventure I'm writing.
Please.
All right. Now.
The other thing that the dragon die can be used for is for what's called stunt points.
If you're slapping Dennis, and you roll doubles on any of the dice, it doesn't matter which one, then as long as you've succeeded in slapping Dennis, then you get to generate stunt points. The dragon die will tell you how many stunt points you earn on that attack roll, and there are lists of stunts that you can consult to spend those stunt points to perform extra feats.
Yeah.
You might... sorry, go ahead.
There are different stunts for different types of encounters, but you can cross them over. Like, there are exploration stunts, which give you things like bonuses on how you perceive things, or let you do stuff more quickly. Combat stunts, like maybe you get to slap him again, like
Lightning attack.
Ooh.
Or lethal blow. Maybe you
Dislocated his jaw or something.
Yeah, maybe you really just like put a 10-pound weight on your hand and just slapped him like straight into Topeka. Like, that would be, you add 2d6 damage in that case.
Straight to
But
Antiva.
then there's also role-playing stunts where you
If you
can do
want
some.
to jest,
or if you
and
wanted
make fun
to-
of Dennis.
I was gonna say flirt with Dennis.
Oh, that's fair. We know what game we're playing.
It's Dragon Age. We're here to smooch. So I think we should be flirting with Dennis, and you can
So
do
by
that
that
if you get the stunt points. It might
So
not work.
in that moment, you slap Dennis and he realizes that he really likes that.
Yeah, Dennis
Oh.
is into it.
Oh man.
You slap Dennis and you give him the smolder, and then Dennis will have to roll against your smolder, and if he doesn't make that willpower self-discipline, and Dennis has to have possibly been into you before this, like, Dennis can't, like,
Dennis has
you have to be Dennis's type.
You have to be Dennis's type.
Oh.
And if you are, then that opens up some fun Dennis relationship options.
I am concerned.
We did have a list of creatures in the campaign that would not respond to seduction tests.
Most of them were nothing close to human.
No, despite many uses of the flirt stunt.
Yeah. Giant snake,
horses,
dragons,
dead squirrels.
dead squirrels.
I have questions.
These things cannot be flirted.
I don't have answers for you.
But as long as you got 4 stunt points, then that heart option shows up.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad the heart option is still in the game, because so many people just like to flirt with anything that moves, and now you can, guys.
Yeah.
Now you can.
One of the things that I really like, though, about it is that, specifically in this stunt, not to get too specific, but is that it doesn't necessarily auto-succeed. Like, there are... I hate the idea that, no matter if you roll high enough, an NPC is going to be into you. But, this is one of those where, hey, this NPC is just not into girls. Like, so if I try to hit on this PC, it's just not going to work. Or, like, this NPC thinks you're an ass. And if you act like that, there's no real amount of flirt that you're going to be able to pull off. Like, I think that's a good check to put on this.
It leaves it very open on how the GM wants to run it. It mostly says that this character becomes enamored and may open possibilities for long-term romances. And of course it says, assuming gender preference compatibility.
But, so you get all kinds of stunts that you can do with your stunt points.
Bon mot.
Bonmot, you just
can't
get
think
to
of
say
any-
something snarky.
You just say something snarky, that's it. And if you can't think of anything, you pull the table to find something cool to say.
It's pretty good. I like that one.
So they actually have a table of cool things to say in the book?
They don't have any... Unfortunately, they don't have a lot of examples in the book, but assuming that you've played... and so you could say something like, I don't know, have you licked a lamppost in winter?
I was going to go with swooping is bad.
Swooping is bad.
Swooping is bad.
You tag the perfect witty remark onto the end of your action.
That is reading this directly.
It's good stuff. You Alistair it up.
Yeah, so basically that's the other thing that your stunt die is for. And the important thing about that is if you get your stunts when you roll doubles, but however, it doesn't really matter what you roll on the 2 dice that are doubles. It matters what the number is on your dragon die.
Yes.
So like this can be super great if the doubles you rolled were 1s and your dragon die has a 6. But it can also be a super bummer when you roll double 6s and the 1 left over is your dragon die.
Of course.
Oh, and it is important to note that if you don't succeed on a test, it doesn't matter if you rolled the stunt points or not. You don't get them. You gotta succeed to get the stunt points.
Could I save the stunt points, or no? They have to be used then.
Alas, no.
They have to be used right away.
Dang.
No hoarding of stunt points.
They are beautiful.
Do you have to use them, or if you don't use it goes away?
If you don't use them, they just go away.
Yeah, you don't have to use them.
Okay.
Some of the later age games include optional rules for like stunt pools, where if you can't think of anything else you want to use it for, you can contribute it to the stunt pool. But Dragon Age does not do that, unfortunately. Well, I guess if your individual campaign, if you want to, you could, if you buy the Fantasy Age companion and start porting some stuff over. But by itself, Dragon Age does not necessarily do that. I don't think it necessarily fits the theme. It's a bit too. Dragon Age is pretty cinematic, but it feels a bit more heroic. I think
it feels a bit high fantasy.
Yeah,
like fancy, highfalutin JRPG fantasy, which I also love.
I mean, yes, there's a place for those.
It's my heart. That's where that place is.
Now there are.
What else do I need to know?
Yes, there are a couple other kinds of tests that are just basic variations on the basic test. There are opposed tests, where most tests will have a set target number that your GM asks you to roll against. They'll usually write it down, or they'll have it in mind when you roll the test. Like, if you want to cross an ocean with the Constitution swimming, that's a target number 21. If you want to break off a rusty doorknob, maybe that's like a target number 9. Things like that. But in the case where someone is directly trying to oppose you, you do an opposed test, which basically means that you and your opponent roll off, and whoever rolls higher wins. For example, maybe you're arm wrestling in a bar, or you're trying to sneak past a guard who is trying to listen, or you're debating somebody. It is worth noting that you do have to roll higher to win. If you tie, you then look at the dragon die to see who rolled higher on the dragon die, and dragon die can also break ties. If both people roll the same number on the dragon die, you then go to whoever has the higher ability score.
Or who has the focus, isn't it?
I think
we never look at the focus, do we? It's just the ability score.
I think technically it's ability score. I think we've had those tie as well, so then I asked, does anyone have the focus that I asked for? And if it ties even like four levels in,
roll off.
Then you can roll again.
I'm sure that's happened somewhere.
It has happened.
That has definitely happened. It's nice and always nice and exciting when 2 people roll the same number. Then we have to start bouncing back and forth. The third kind of tests that you would roll is a bit more complicated. It's called an advanced test. You would usually use these when it feels a little inappropriate to roll a single die to complete a check, or when the GM wants to know how long it takes someone to complete a task. That's usually when the GM will call for an advanced test. You might be like researching a library to figure out maybe the name of a demon that you're trying to find in the Fade. Or maybe you're trying to go through some records at maybe you snuck into the House of Repose and you're trying to find some records to destroy. And you need to do it quickly or else someone's going to come catch you. So you got to figure out how quickly you're going to do it. So advanced tests are what you pull out when you need to know how quickly you're going to get it all done. And they have a couple special rules. When the GM gives you an advanced test, they'll usually give you like a list of abilities and focuses that can be used to advance the test. These tests can be basic tests or opposed tests if someone is actively working against you from completing this advanced test. The GM will also assign something that's called a success threshold, which represents how much work is required to complete the task. And this is used to track progress on the test. One of my favorite examples of this actually is in Dragon Age Inquisition, when you're doing, what's it called? Wicked Eyes and Wicked Hearts. And you've got the influence counter. That is a perfect example. That's telling you how much influence you've got. So the Inquisitor is going around the party, talking to people, schmoozing, collecting secrets, doing a whole bunch of things that are advancing this advanced test to make a good impression. So every time you succeed on a test, like the Inquisitor making a perception test to listen to secrets, or making a communication test to make some folks feel better, every time you succeed, you look at the dragon die, and that will tell you how much you succeeded. You add that to the success threshold, and you keep rolling tests until the success equals or exceeds the success threshold. So maybe they heard like a pretty mundane secret that maybe Liliana can use. They got like a 2 on the dragon die, so they're in for a long night. So the success threshold is like 30 or something. So that's 2 out of 30 that they need. But then maybe they happen to talk to just the right person. They lift their spirits, and then that person speaks well about the Inquisitor at the party. They get like a 5 on the dragon die. So now they're at a 7 out of 30. And they'll just keep going and keep working on getting that success threshold and getting to that success threshold. And once they hit that 30 or pass it, then they succeed.
Okay.
So far, this scene, like the very little I've played of, I almost said Dragon Age, Dungeons and Dragons, like this seems a lot less complicated.
Is that right? Good.
Yeah. So maybe because I think I played 4. Which I heard was very bad. So
I played 4 and I had a lot of fun. I thought it was real sick that I could be a barbarian that had like 4 different kinds of rage. That was real cool. But it's, I think it was trying to reach a very particular kind of crowd that was not the crowd that was following Dungeons and Dragons at the time. It definitely got me. I had fun.
It didn't catch my group apparently because they left me. Anyway. Yeah, I know. Okay, so what is that? Is that like the main? Is that it? Or I mean, there's fighting, but
yeah, I mean that's the basic. That's a lot of the real basic stuff. Once you've got how tests work, that's how to roll the dice. That's like you've got like 50% of the game right there.
Okay. That seems pretty easy.
Yeah. Combat, of course, role-playing and exploration encounters usually are just collections of tests. Sometimes some GMs will have like special little extra systems that they use. When our campaign went to Vinter, it was one of the last places that they visited. It was pretty high. So they were fairly high level at the time. And they were essentially going to Vinter to try and convince the Imperial Senate to slowly let the slaves go.
Oh.
Slowly let, and they, there was a, because, well, I'm thinking how much of this campaign do I need to explain? There was a huge blood magic ritual. The villain sacrificed the villain sacrificed a bunch of his underlings to basically send a telepathic message to all the elves in Thedas, saying, "Come join me. We will have Thedas back." So the rest of the campaign was about these 3 elven gals going around Thedas trying to convince all the elves, "Don't do that. That's a bad idea. The world is going to burn if you do." So they had to talk. So there was an Arlathvin was called, and they went to talk to the Dalish elves. The Hahren'als from various cities gathered in Valroyo in Orlais. So they got to talk to the Hahren'als and have a New Year's bash at the Winter Palace and save the Empress from a dragon. That was cool.
Ooh.
The last leg of it was they knew that all those elven slaves in Tevinter would have heard that message. So they wanted to go to Tevinter to see what the situation was and what they could do to potentially start letting them leak out to come to Brasilia to find a better life. So as part of their adventure, I had 5 advanced tests that were up on a television screen, and I was showing them the progress that they had towards each of them. They had the option for to encourage rebel cells to start an underground railroad. They had the option to just go to parties and meet the Tevinter nobility and schmooze and make a good name for themselves. They had the option to do some dark research because we are in Tevinter, of course you do, which let them unlock some weird blood magic powers for everybody. You know.
As you do.
Yeah. So you can do stuff like that for like role playing and exploration encounters. You can add extra stuff to make it a bit more complicated and a bit more exciting. Usually they stay pretty simple. Combat, of course, has a couple extra rules. You've got everybody's got health, and everybody's got a score called the defense, which is the number that you need to hit with an attack roll in order to damage them. If you've played Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of it is going to sound pretty similar to things like armor class is basically your defense.
That sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. For combat, let's see. There's a couple of specific considerations. Of course, they're like attack rolls can of course generate stunt points, and the combat stunt table is pretty big. There's a lot of options. Most of those options on that table really only work for combat. Like if you're talking to the Empress and you get like 5 stunt points, you don't really want to spend it on lethal blow. That's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, probably not.
But for the most part, combat is also just more like rolling basic tests to hit people. If you're trying to disarm somebody, that's an opposed test. You get to roll attack rolls against each other, and if you win, then you knock their weapon out of their hand. So as long as you've got those first like 3 kinds of tests down, that's most of the game. Combat is going to, of course, be things like reducing people's health to 0, or at least like injuring them enough that they decide to flee. You have armor, which is reducing damage that you're taking as it's coming in. Of course, you've got spells that are giving you bonuses on things occasionally. You maybe have like combat talents that you can activate that give you some extra boosts or some extra tricks to perform. Combat can get pretty wild and nitty gritty, but it shouldn't get much more complicated than like, we're rolling dice, we're rolling tests. We'll see if we got stunts on this one, and that's it. And everybody takes their turn, and then we go back up to the top and try again.
Now, I will say that I'm not a big D&D player, so I don't know this for certain, but I've heard that a lot of, particularly I think it was 4 maybe, sometimes things in combat took too long, and so I think the 5th edition tried to make things more snappy. So would you say that like this battling system like is more like takes a little bit longer? Is it more snappy? Where does it kind of fall in that line?
I have definitely heard from a lot of players and some GMs that some folks do complain that a little later in the game there's health bloat. There's just a lot of hell. Like even if you can hit people, which honestly hitting people is usually not hard. The real way that you protect yourself in Dragon Age is having lots of armor rating, because your defense is only going to go so high unless you're Jill's character and is like working on getting like a 21 defense, and of course she's got like no armor rating and very little health because she didn't invest in her Constitution score until like level 11, when she found out that you don't add a d6 to health after level 10, you just add your Constitution score, and it was a 0. So her health, her case is very particular. She didn't, but she was a glass cannon. She and unfortunately also made some rule decisions that I'm not going to do anymore because they were kind of ruinous, and I had to put in a lot of unkind challenges just to make sure that everybody was still everyone was still being challenged. But I'm rambling. I usually find that a lot of folks complain that, and that especially later in the game, enemies have a lot of health. That even if you can hit the defense and can get past their armor rating, because their armor rating is taking damage off of every strike, every damage roll, then it can become a slog. This can be remedied in a couple of ways. A lot of the core rulebook does mention that a lot of like NPCs will have like morale. Like if they go down to a certain amount of health, they start to fear for their life and decide to run. So you don't have to necessarily take them down to 0 health. You can also like have encounters that are not necessarily about taking everybody down to 0 health. Maybe you've got something else that you're trying to do and you're just trying to hold off the bad guys while you, I don't know, turn a crank. It's turn a crank to open up a door in a temple or something. And so it doesn't always have to be taking folks down to 0 health, but even if you do, especially at low levels, stunts of course come up fairly often, so you can usually count on them getting you a little extra oomph. So if you need more damage rolls in there, you need to protect yourself some more, or you just need to move your friends around the field a little bit, stunts will usually help with that. There are also a couple of optional rules that they introduced in some of the other Age games that personally I think work very well for Dragon Age. In the Fantasy Age Companion, they introduced rules for making things more dangerous, which for Dragon Age I think is very appropriate. They included ways to increase damage or ways to decrease how much health your characters have. One of the things that I thought would work very well was they had wound thresholds, which felt very Dragon Age, at least Dragon Age Origins and Dragon Age 2. Like, every time you bring your character back up from unconsciousness, they come back with less health.
Yeah.
But how this one works is when your character gets down to half their health, they start taking penalties to things.
Okay.
They start taking penalties to, like, attacks, and they take penalties to defense and speed. When they get down to, like, 25% of their health, the penalty increases. And when they get down to very low numbers, like the highest between their constitution or willpower score, then they can't run or charge. They're taking big penalties on things, the potential danger of it is that it can cause what some folks call a death spiral, where if one person gets injured, suddenly they're a burden on the party because they're not swinging as hard as everybody else is. I think for Dragon Age, it's pretty appropriate, and it makes healing very valuable. And of course, there are ways that you can increase damage. They said that you could add extra ability scores to damage, or just add an extra d6 to all damage rolls, just to make things more dangerous, or reduce how much health everyone is getting. So you've got options, and I think the health bloat is probably the big one that I've heard. So there are band-aids for it.
Okay.
But I think they probably also left it the way it is because it's. I think it gives a nice cushion especially for newer folks who are new to role playing games, to not have their character just slapped out of their hand all of a sudden.
Yeah.
That's my guess, at least. That's my educated guess. I know that would make me feel better.
You mentioned that there are other Age games. What if someone has already played those, but they haven't played this? What are some of the differences?
Yes.
Between this and that.
Dragon Age is, of course, a dark fantasy setting, and it is a full setting. One of the best things about the Dragon Age RPG is that you can play the video games, and you can read the novels and the comic books, and play that browser game, I guess. That was fun, right? Everybody did that,
Yeah,
right?
it was actually cute. I did play that.
I played it, and I got a pretty mediocre ending the first time. Everyone just kind of left disappointed.
Yeah.
But The benefit of that is Dragon Age has a very strong IP that already exists, so you've got lots of places to get inspiration, and lots of places where they show you what Dragon Age looks like. They don't just tell you what the world is like in the book. Although they do have a very long write-up for the world of Thedas, so you can get some basic building blocks and some ideas. But because you have all this media to access, you can really stick your face into Thedas and then come back up for air and be like, I've got an idea for a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other Age games do that too. Blue Rose has got a setting that it's attached to. The Expanse RPG is a whole setting of sci-fi novels and now a television show.
It's that. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that was a tabletop RPG.
Yeah, they got a tabletop RPG. They just kickstarted it this year. So feel free to use those resources to get used to Thedas right away. Some more nitty-gritty things is Dragon Age has fewer ability scores than other games. They kind of tweaked how they wanted ability scores to work in later games. They added 2 extra ones, and they took 2 abilities from Dragon Age and smushed them together in the other games. But Dragon Age, you use six abilities that are from the video games: Constitution, Cunning, Dexterity, Magic, Strength, and Willpower. And they added Communication and Perception to facilitate a role-playing game. Because a role-playing game is a bit more moment-to-moment control, and I guess they kind of did it like in Origins. Like they had the survival skill, which would put enemies on the minimap for you, which is kind of like perception. And they had the coercion skill, which was for intimidate and diplomacy. So these communication and perception kind of fulfill that same role, but because role-playing games are a bit more fluid in their interactivity, because video games, they only have so much of a budget. They can only give you so many dialogue options and so many places to check. But with a role-playing game, sky's the limit. So they needed a couple extra things to facilitate that. The stunt die, of course, in Dragon Age is called the Dragon die. In Blue Rose, we call it the Drama die. In Fantasy Age and Modern Age, we call it the Stunt die. I don't know if the Expanse calls it anything special or not. I haven't gotten to read that book yet. And in the setting that I'm writing, we call it the Spirit die.
Ooh, I like that.
I was a little upset to find out that another game that came out recently was already using that name, but
we're not gonna talk about that one.
Punks.
That's not as cool. Punks.
Right. All Age games have specializations. Specializations was something that got introduced to the game in the second box set, and it was a Dragon Age thing. But Specializations made it into all of the other Age games. But of course, Dragon Age's Specializations, for the most part, are setting specific, and a lot of the Specializations in other games are also setting specific. Which is at level 6. At level 6 in Dragon Age, you can start taking a specialization. You've got 7 to pick from for each class, and they are class locked. So only rogues can become duelists, legionnaire scouts, or shadows. Only warriors can become berserkers or chevaliers or guardians. And of course, only mages can become spirit healers, blood mages, and arcane warriors.
As you do, at least for me, looking at the list, these specializations if you played the games, you know what these are. These are stuff from the games,
which is cool.
Yeah. They don't have all the specializations from Inquisition. They did manage to sneak the Necromancer in there. They also wrote the Chevalier specialization, which is not in the video games. And it's very good at mounted combat, which is probably why I didn't make it into the video games, because there's not a lot of mounted combat happening.
Yeah. Hopes for the next game, BioWare.
Yeah, here we go. Later Age games kind of open up the specializations to more than one class, but for Dragon Age, you've got 7 choices to make, and you get 2 specializations throughout your leveling, so you can mix and match them to get some real cool stuff. Goodness, let's see. Like that big winner, Berserker Reaver. That one's mean. That one's very mean. Very dangerous. Bonuses to damage, discounts on the lethal blow stunt. You can use a minor action to just make everyone's blood boil. You know, for fun stuff.
Yeah.
Magic. In most of the games that Age has, magic tends to work very differently in each one. Magic works actually very similar to how it works in the video games. You have MP, you have mana that you spend to cast spells. And you've got you start the game, I think, with 3 spells, and then at later levels, I want to say every odd or even numbered level for a mage, you learn another spell. And you can get extra ones by taking certain talents. In later games, they tied gaining spells to taking talents. And in Blue Rose, anybody can have magic. Like, magic is everywhere. Magic for days. Everyone can have psychic magic. And it doesn't even cost anything to cast. You may have to make a test against getting tired when you cast your spells, but you don't have to spend mana.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. In Dragon Age, we've got mana points. You spend mana points to cast a spell. You make a casting test, and if you succeed on casting the spell, then the spell goes off correctly. If you fail, then you lose those mana points, and the spell doesn't happen. But because you are rolling to cast that spell, you can stunt, and there are spell stunts that you can use. Let's see. Mages can take any spell that they qualify for right away. More powerful spells carry a very special risk, something that we mentioned earlier.
Yes.
If a mage fails to cast a spell that has a requirement listed, and they roll a 1 on the dragon die, they have to roll a willpower self-discipline test against the same target number to cast that spell to control the magic. If they succeed, the magic just kind of bursts out, does nothing, spends their mana, and throws them to the ground. And it's over. But if you fail that willpower self-discipline test, there is a table called Magical Mishaps that we then have to consult. We look at your dragon die results to see what happens to you. There are 6 things that could potentially happen. At least you're just going to lose a lot of mana. You might have to pay for the mana cost twice without any spell happening. You might lose the mana and an equal amount of health. You might have the spell might go off, but hit an ally instead. Or might have the opposite effect. Apparently the GM is encouraged to be creative on that one. Or you can have your mind thrown into the Fade for 2d6 minutes. And every 2 minutes that you're stuck there, a demon comes along and tries to take your body. And you have to make a willpower self-discipline to not lose your body.
But what happens if you do lose your body?
If you do lose your body, you hand your character sheet over to the GM, and they create an abomination, and you have to make a new character.
Oh! How fun!
It's stone cold. Like, it's in there in the rulebook. The player must make a new character. That's it. Like, you're like, that character's an abomination now. They're done.
Have you had that happen to you guys?
Thank goodness we have not. We've had some close calls. Okay. I did get nice, and one of the magic items that they found was an oak rod. In the Brazilian forest. Then they had, and it, I think it lets you adjust by 1. Lets you adjust your dragon die result by 1 to determine what's magical mishap you have. So you can always take it 1 step away from harrowing, or you can increase it or decrease it to kind of select what exactly it is you want to do. That's really the only item that lets you do that, though. Usually you're going to be at the mercy of the dice. But you do have to fail 3 tests in very particular ways each time, so it's not super likely that you are actually going to just like, I'm going to cast flaming weapons. No, you're going to kill all your friends now. That's what you're going to do. Thankfully, it's not quite that quick. It's because you have to fail the casting test and roll a 1 on the dragon die. You have to fail the willpower test and roll 6 on the dragon die. And then you have to fail a willpower faith or self-discipline test. And and if you make it, then you hold on and wait until that 2d6 minutes is up.
So it's a threat, but it's not like constant.
It is,
that
yes.
makes sense. Like, it's not constantly happening to you. Okay.
Right.
That seems fair.
You have to fail a lot of things in very particular fashion. And they did design it so that because you have to roll a 6 on that dragon die to get the harrowing, assuming that you rolled a 6 on the dragon die, it means that the rest of the roll is probably fairly good. Mm-hmm. So you probably made that willpower self-discipline test. So if you've got a very bad willpower, even if you roll nice, you might still fail, and you might still get that harrowing. So make sure that all your mages are investing in willpower. It's just a good idea. It's just a good idea.
A tip for all you character creators out there.
Exactly. Mages who want to get a little more out of magic, they did write a talent called Spell Expertise, where you basically just get a whole bunch of stunt tables for magic opened up to you specifically. They have stunts for like 4 schools of magic and some general ones, but they're fun. They give you a lot of options. They let you do some really wild stuff with some magic. There are also rules for strain, which is if you put armor on, then spells just become more expensive. Rules to rest to regain mana. Spell power is, I think they took that term directly out of Dragon Age Origins, which was basically determines how powerful your spells are and how hard it is to resist them. Then of course there are 5 schools of magic: blood, creation, entropy, primal, and spirit. Several of them are restricted to a specialization. You can't cast blood spells unless you are in blood mode, which requires you to have the blood mage specialization. Some of them require a talent to be a certain rank. Maybe I think you have to be a journeyman in creation magic to learn the spring spell, which makes drinkable water.
Oh, okay.
And some of them require you to know 3 spells before you can actually learn that one. I believe Petrify requires you to also know Earthquake and Stone Fist before you can cast it.
I regret teaching Solus Stone Fist then.
It's a shame that he unfortunately doesn't learn Rock Armor, because that one's also considered a bit of a spell tax, because it's the one spell that you can take that gives you armor rating. It doesn't have any requirements. You can take it at level 1, and it's a solid choice. So we know, mages, if you want to live, learn some Rock Armor.
The good.
Or I guess you could dive heavy into that spirit magic and learn things like Arcane Shield, which gives you a super huge defense, or like Force Field, which just puts a magic bubble around you. People can't get in, but you can definitely still cast spells through it.
So what else is there that's kind of special?
Let's see. People who are running games in Thedas may want to take a good look at the chapter 11 of the core rulebook, because it's the Secrets of Thedas chapter. It's got extra stuff in it that GMs may find helpful not to show to the players, like how the taint works, how to adjudicate surviving your joining. It's got a couple options in there, and some of them are not very kind.
So it's not actually so if you go on to take the joining, it's not guaranteed that you actually survive.
They have like 3 ways that you can do it. One of which is just, they're the heroes. They take the joining, they survive. Because we want them to live, because we want them to continue playing the game. They also have a couple of options if you want it to be at least a little spooky, and one option if you want it to be realistic.
Ooh, okay.
Because I think they say like 2 out of 3 people who take the joining don't survive it. So
that's a very large number.
They have a mechanic to reflect that if you really want to do that for your game. I don't particularly recommend it myself, unless your players are cool with things being kind of harsh. But we finally get to join the Grey Wardens. Campaign over. There are also a lot of weird things that you can do with the Fade. Especially if a lot of which was taken from Dragon Age Origins, all those weird tricks that you can perform in the Fade. Yeah, maybe you can do it here, and they include some rules for that. And there's a couple of fluff things that certainly help, but yeah, I'm gonna leave the rest of that secret.
Oh, okay.
Because it's the secrets of Thedas, and if I read it all off to you, then it won't be secret anymore.
That is true. It wouldn't be a secret if everyone knew it.
Right. Dragon Age, out of all the Age games right now, is also the only one that currently has crafting rules for 3 different particular kinds of crafts. You can craft poisons, you can craft traps, and you can craft runes, just like you could in Origins.
Mm-hmm.
They have some rules for crafting, and for making each of those, and you can also use them, of course, to make things a bit more dangerous. So if you want to give your NPCs some poisons, or fill a mansion with traps. We wouldn't know anything about that in our current campaign, or in our campaign that we did. Definitely had a stairway that was painfully trapped. And want to tell us how you got through that weird staircase that was trapped with 3 4d6 penetrating damage traps?
Yes, it helps very much to have levitate and an absurd magic score. Because you can cast levitate on objects, and then the object's dexterity and strength become its scores are determined by you dividing up your magic score into those 2 stats. So I was able to give it an 8. I had a 9 magic, which is an absurd number.
That is an absurd number.
So I was able to divide it up 9 strength and 0 dexterity, and I just put the whole party on this carpet, and I literally just whole new worlded everybody up the stairs, so nobody had to touch the stairs.
That reminds me of the solution in the Dragon Age novel Last Fight. I don't know if you guys have read that.
No, I haven't been able to find that one.
I haven't read that.
Really? They recently released those new illustrated versions. You should try to pick up one of those.
I should pick those up.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I did not know that was already in one of the books. I figured that was one that they wrote.
It's a little bit different. It's not like a trapped mansion, but a very important part of the novel is levitating things. So
yes, but that was definitely how we did it.
Mm-hmm.
You can of course poison your weapons, and poison making also lets you make grenades.
Mm-hmm.
Traps is useful for GMs and for players who want to just set up a quick trap around the door that they're behind in the inn. And runes let you customize the magic items that you find that have rune slots in them. Getting somebody who can craft runes is tricky because that talent requires you to either be a dwarf or a tranquil.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's rough.
Okay.
Yeah. And,
that wasn't like that in the game, which doesn't make a lot of sense. I appreciate that it makes sense in this.
But at the same time, that does sound like a pain.
That's fair. Yep.
I think it's probably to rarefy.
Probably.
Runes.
I think that's probably right.
Can you play a tranquil? Is that a thing you can?
In theory, yes. There aren't official rules on exactly how you would play a tranquil, and I think they probably kind of discourage it just because there's probably not that much that you can do for the party besides just kind of quietly trailing along and crafting things for everybody, which you certainly could do. I believe there are. I don't know if we have. I believe that there were some folks in the community who wanted to write rules for being a tranquil mage. I don't know that they ever finished them, or if they did, I don't know if we ever got them.
Yeah, not sure about that, but it would be interesting.
Yes. Or you can just be a dwarf, the cool race.
Yeah.
Really?
Really? I see we have a Dwarven fan.
We have an Orzammar enthusiast.
Okay.
Well,
That's
and,
me.
you know, you've got a Dalish elf mage wife, so...
See, I am more inclined with the... Actually, now I'm thinking about, yeah, my husband's big on dwarves, too. Like, he's not a Dragon Age person, but, like, he definitely loves beards and all that stuff, and I'm definitely more the pretty elves in the forest.
Yeah, see, Ren's type is pretty elves.
I mean, yes.
In Dragon Age, it's pretty elf boys, but...
Pretty much. Whether I am romancing the pretty elf boy or I am the pretty elf boy.
Somebody should be a pretty elf
But
boy.
there's always a pretty elf boy component.
Mm-hmm.
Happy Pride Month, everybody.
They didn't put Fenris in Faces of Thedas, but they did get 2 out of 3 of my boyfriends.
But he'll be there in your heart.
He'll be there in my heart, exactly.
All right. So, how do we get started then?
That is an excellent question. All these rules are real cool, but we need a place to use them. So, if you grab the Dragon Age core rulebook, there are 3 pre-written adventures that are ready to go right out of the box. The first one, Blue Harvest, is actually an adventure that they wrote just for the core rulebook. It wasn't in existence before they put it in here.
No.
So, and I've gone through it. They use a couple of extra things that they wrote in later sets, like the organization rules, because you'll be dealing with these weird people in Orlais. But I mean, who else are you gonna meet in Orlais, right? You get to go to a party and deal with some hardline Templars, some weird nobles, and some crime syndicates. It's really cool, and it's all about it's an adventure about the lyrium trade.
Oh, okay.
Which is apparently called the Indigo Road.
I did not know that.
The next adventure that they put in is the Autumn Falls, which is for 7th level characters. And it is about participating in the Grand Tourney.
I've heard of this one.
It's a really cool adventure. You get to meet Grey Wardens, you get to stop a crazy cult, all while participating in the contest of arms. And they include a bunch of really cool side notes that you can introduce to make the adventure more complicated. Because there's already you're already getting a delegation from Orzammar is coming to visit. They're coming to the surface because the grand prize of the tournament is I think they wrote down here, it is Anvil Breaker, which is a magic hammer. It was actually the hammer that was used by the Paragon who invented the art of folding steel. So
That's a pretty good prize.
It is incredibly valuable to the dwarves. Valuable enough that nobles from Orzammar leave Orzammar to go collect it, and they don't lose their caste for it. It's considered that important. It's also important enough that dwarves from Kal Sharok come to collect it as well.
And this is why I know of it.
Yeah. The third adventure The third adventure that they include in the core book is called Battle's Edge, and it is an adventure that's supposed to take place during the 5th Blight for characters level 11 to 13. And it actually involves mass combat. You were supposed to go... there is an army of Darkspawn that is coming to Edgehall, and you have to go to the surrounding bands and convince them to lend their armies to you.
I remember this one too.
You get to fight an ogre with a name.
Oh.
He's got a name. One Horn. It was actually a surprisingly ironic name given our campaign, but at this point...
Yeah, long story, but...
Yeah.
He was not the only person in the campaign who ended up with a single horn, so...
Yes.
I again have questions.
Most of it involves publicly ridiculing a chevalier who decided that it would be cool to nearly run us over, and then was a jerk about it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so then one of our NPCs snuck into his house in the middle of the night and stole one horn out of every single one of his helmets.
Oh.
It was great. I married that NPC.
That reminds me though. Can you play Canary in this yet? Because I know this was kind of came out before Canary were playable races.
You can play a Kunari, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
It's actually in this next step we'll probably talk about that a bit more. Backgrounds are a heck of a drug. But if you can find it, on Green Ronin's online store, you can also download the free PDF for an adventure called The Dalish Curse, which is, that one's a fun one. That was actually the original introductory adventure they had in box set 1. Real quick note for everybody, tone down the Blight Wolves. Because I've heard too many stories that very first encounter like wipes the party, and then no one wants to play Dragon Age anymore because the Blight Wolves are mean. A problem. The Blight Wolves are mean. They are tone them
dangerous. Down. They will wipe a party.
Oh wow.
Other than that, it's a cool adventure. Just that one little hiccup. I believe you can, I don't think they print it anymore, but there should be a PDF that's called Blood and Ferelden that is an adventure anthology that contains, I believe the adventures are called Amber Rage, Where Eagle's Lair, and A Fragile Web, which they're all excellent, and I actually a lot of these adventures can also be strung together to make a mini campaign, which is what we did.
Oh, cool.
And if you manage to grab the GM's kit, includes a GM screen, and an adventure in the Deep Roads about helping some dwarves recollect a Tig, if I'm not mistaken. I read through it once, and it was a little while ago, but you get to fight some Darkspawn, get to work with some dwarves. Some of those dwarves are lying.
But yeah, those are some of the...
and if you want fan-created works, we have those on our resources for your game page on our Dragon Age blog. Yeah. One of which I wrote called "What Chains Are For." I'm currently working on on a little anthology that I'm calling "The Chronicles of the Parvalan Star." The first of which I'm going to be debuting at Gen Con, and I believe we've got a couple adventures from our friend Andy. Who we put on there, and a couple other folks who've converted adventures from other games to work for Dragon Age.
So definitely.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
But I suppose
links will be down below.
How you make these characters?
Yes.
Correct.
Links will be down below.
Yes.
I can provide you with those links.
Okay. Yes. How do we make characters?
Yes.
Yeah. How do we do this?
All right. Fun stuff. So we got all the stuff. We read through the rules. And we've looked at, and we know what exactly we want to play. So, making a character in Dragon Age is 8 steps. We're going to be discussing them as they appear in order in the book, but you may find that your creation process has you jump around to different steps or take some steps out. So, do whatever feels right.
Okay.
Some of these steps folks might have done the moment that we start. Like step 1 is create a concept, the basics. Who is this person? Let's see. And it can usually help to maybe just write down a single sentence that describes this character in very, very basic terms. Let's see. What are the examples they include? Things like a gutter snipe raised on the streets who will do anything to survive. A native farmer who wants to travel farther than 5 miles away from they were born.
There you go.
A cynical mercenary who trusts little but coin. An artist seeking inspiration in dark and dangerous places. The child of the forest, more comfortable around animals than people. So, something simple that's actionable and that you can jump on. And a lot of folks who know Dragon Age will probably already know what race they want to do. They already know where they want to come from. They already know what they've already maybe designed a clan that they come from. We would know.
No one would do that.
No one would do that.
No one would do that.
Who would
use the names in there for a plan? But
so once you've got a character concept, do you happen to have one, or do you want to come back to this one?
I can pull one out of my ass. I don't know if we can cuss on this, but here we go.
We're doing it now.
Hey, we're doing it now. My bad. Okay, because I know we're going to be playing this game, not live, but recording it and putting it out there. And I feel like it would be off-brand to not play an elf mage, so I'm going to go elf mage. I feel like my warden's a circle mage, and my inquisitor's a Dalish mage, so I'm going to go with apostate elven mage.
Yes.
There
What a
we go.
good start.
All right.
There we go.
Excellent way to start a character. Not that I'm biased.
Let's see. I was enslaved and I just got out of slavery. And I'm just trying to, I guess, run away from this Fenris, this female Fenris. That's okay. We're gonna fucking go with it.
But a mage.
All right.
Okay. This isn't in this game. I'm gonna be the new Fenris.
Sweet. All right. Here we are. All right. Second step is determining your ability scores. You've got 8 of them, and there are 3 ways that you can determine ability scores. You can roll them. Let's see, the original way to do it, which is supposed to be like very straightforward. Let's see, especially for folks who are brand new to role-playing games. You roll all your abilities in order, and then you swap 2 of them.
That's pretty harsh, especially because you're rolling 3d6 instead of the usual 4d6 for other tabletops.
Yes. Your 3d6s, there is a table that determines what abilities you get based on your 3d6 roll. Yeah. Do you happen to have dice with you?
I have a dice roller.
That works. Sure. We don't need to know which one's the dragon die in this case.
All right. So I just roll 3 of them?
You're roll 3d6s, and you're gonna put all of the you're gonna get the total of those 3d6s, and that determines which ability you get based on a table on page 11 of the core book.
Okay, I'm gonna roll 3 dice.
Okay,
I have those dice.
Cool.
Do I just add them together then for you guys?
Just add them together.
All right, that's 12.
12. Your communication is a 2.
My communication is a 2. Where do I write that on?
On the character sheet, there should be a box next to communication, like a big box. That's where we put the big number.
So it says like rating very faintly. I'm going to write a 12 there, yeah?
Let's see. Rating, you would write 2.
2, okay.
For context, 1 is considered an average ability score for normal people in Thedas.
Okay. Do I need to keep the number 12 anywhere, or it doesn't?
Nope. You don't need to keep that number.
Okay.
Go ahead and roll it again. We'll determine your constitution.
11.
11. Your constitution is a 1. Average.
All right. This time we have a 13.
A 13 means you have a 2 cunning.
Okay.
You're pretty smart.
Yeah. We got a 7.
Ooh.
Sorry, 8. Sorry.
8 means you have a 0 dexterity.
Uh-oh.
Well.
A little klutzy.
Yep.
So far we're on brand.
I feel that. I feel that on a deep level.
All right. Next is your magic score.
We got a 10.
A 10 means you got a 1.
We'll probably want to swap that.
We can swap these. Yeah. We can swap 2 of them later. All right. And then comes perception.
No. We got a 9.
All right. You got a 1. You got a 1
average
perception. Average
It's
perception.
Not a great stat array so far.
9.
Another 9 means a 1 in strength.
Okay. And then hopefully get a big number this time. Oh no.
What we got?
We got a 7.
7. You have a 0 willpower.
Oh god, this is a bad mage.
This is a rough one.
I am an apostate.
Right. This is rough. I usually give folks the option to re-roll their entire array if it just comes up.
If it totals less than 10, generally.
Especially if the total of the abilities is less than 10, then that's pretty rough.
Now, you know what? If she dies during the campaign, she dies. She's going to try her best. So we're just going to. This character tries her best. So I guess we're swapping 2 here. I'm going to say let's swap communication with willpower. So that 2 for a 0.
All right.
That seems pretty good.
Hey, it's a solid place to be.
Maybe swap cunning for magic,
no, those are the only ones. You could swap 1 for another.
You can swap
basically.
1.
Oh.
You can swap 1 pair of abilities.
It.
Got it.
But
all right, we're done then.
Yeah, the other ways that people do abilities is to roll all abilities in order and then arrange them however you feel like it. And then the final one that is the most balanced is to start with all abilities at 0, and you get 10 points to advance into all of your stats, and a maximum of 3 in any stat.
Okay.
Which gives you a lot of control. This is nice and quick and dirty. Next, we select a background. Based on what you have told me, I have some suggestions. There are 32 backgrounds to look through.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
Are you part of a clan?
No, I wouldn't say I'm Dalish.
Oh, okay. So you would probably go straight for the... Okay, then you probably go straight for the
Pure
apostate.
apostate, yeah.
The pure apostate background.
Okay, we'll do that one.
Which will adjust your character a little bit more. Backgrounds in Dragon Age work a little differently than most other Age games because your background is basically it is your race. It determines what classes you can take. It tells you what your upbringing was like. It gives you your starting languages, and it adjusts your character a little bit more. So backgrounds in Dragon Age in particular are big. I'd say are these big packages that you drop in the character, and it gives them a lot of context. And it works particularly well for Dragon Age because all of these backgrounds have a lot of context behind them. All these have like cultures and histories behind them. So if you wanted to play a city elf, it would show up. It would end up being very different from like an Antivan Wayfarer.
Yeah.
So because you're an elf apostate. You increase your willpower by 1.
You're going to be pretty willpowery.
Yeah.
Woo! All right, so now we're at a whopping 3.
All right. You get to pick one of the following ability focuses. You get Cunning Natural Lore or Willpower Self-Discipline. So you can either know about the natural world or have a strong sense of self and
fend off possession.
Which is good for fending off possession.
Yeah, I think I'll do the willpower
All right.
one.
Everybody picks the willpower one.
It's a good
Yeah.
one. You choose whether your character is human or elf.
You picked elf.
I think we figured that one.
Yes.
And then you can speak and read the trade tongue, which is you can talk to folks.
And you are a mage.
And you are a mage. Your backgrounds do determine what classes you can take. For example,
You can't be a rogue apostate.
Exactly. If you're an apostate, you got magic powers, so you're a mage. If you're an avar, you get rogue or warrior. You don't get mage because you'd pick apostate because you'd be an apostate. So then we have another table that you roll on to find out what benefits you get from being an elven apostate. So for this one, we just need 2d6s, and we're gonna roll it twice.
Okay. 2d6. Real quick on the I guess the focuses that I chose. So on the sheet, do I check like willpower focus and then write down self-discipline?
Yes.
Or
I think. I'm not sure which character sheet you're using, but that sounds right.
I think it's the one that like came with the book or whatever.
Okay. There should be, I think the ones that come with a book, there should be a box next to the ability's name that's just kind of big and wide and empty. You can write down the ability focuses in there.
I will write it down there then. Okay, so I got the dice. I got a 5.
A 5 means you also learn Cunning Cultural Lore.
Ooh.
So you have been studying the cultures around you.
And then you do it one more time.
And do it one more time.
A 3?
A 3. A 3 means that you can actually speak Elven.
Oh shit! Okay. Well, maybe I'm ancient Elven. Who knows?
Ooh. Oh man.
There's actually somebody made a...
Somebody actually did.
Somebody made a what's it called?
A
background for being an ancient, like an old elf.
Ooh, that's pretty cool.
It seems pretty boss.
Someone who just woke up out of Uthanera one day and was like,
what is going on here?
What's up?
All right, now what do I do now?
After that, you get to pick your class, which is
mage.
You are a mage.
Yeah.
Which means that it's going to determine a fair number of things about how your character starts. I don't know if they've got if that character sheet should have like a tiny box next to the name of the ability scores, which I think should just like get like a little checkbox. Because you'll want to mark that your primary abilities are cunning, magic, and willpower, and those your secondary abilities is basically everything else: communication, constitution, dexterity, perception, and strength. What do I check? You don't need to check those guys off.
Okay.
Just the primary ones. This is mostly because every level, one of your ability scores goes up by 1. But depending on what kind of, like in every even numbered level, a primary ability goes up, and every odd numbered level, a secondary ability goes up. So this is just to keep track of which one's which. You start with 20 plus your constitution plus 1d6 health.
All right, let's roll that 1d6.
All right.
Hey, we got a 6.
Hey, good.
Hey, we got one good roll. So plus the constitution is 7. So you have 27 then?
27 health. That's a good place to start.
That is a good place to start.
Where do I write that down now? Oh, there's a big... Okay, there's a big box in a circle. Which one do I write it in?
I think the circle is supposed to be your maximum, and then the big box I think is supposed to have like lots of room that you can like.
So we'll write 27
erase.
In the circle.
Yeah, in the little circle.
Okay.
I don't know if they give you a space on there, but your weapon groups are brawling and staves.
Okay.
I don't know if they have a spot that's labeled weapon groups.
Oh wait, weapon groups and notes. Hey, there we go. Okay.
There we go.
All right, so brawling and staves.
That's right. You know how to punch people, and you know how to hit people with log sticks.
That sounds about right then.
Although staves also includes morning stars and maces, so if you do want to hit people with heavy sticks, then you could also do that.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, okay.
I thought they were bludgeons.
Bludgeons is mostly hammers.
Oh. And I wasn't about to hit anything. I had a strength of 0.
All right. Fun stuff. We get your class powers. Your first class power as a mage is your Arcane Lance. This is your you can shoot magical power through a staff. It's the normal attack that mages get in the video games, like a little magic missile you can shoot.
Okay.
You can. I think there should be a spot for ranged attacks. You can write down Arcane Lance.
Mm-hmm.
The attack roll is a magic Arcane Lance test. So you would put down your magic plus your Arcane Lance focus, which I believe, which we don't have yet. So it would just be plus your magic to hit. And it does 1d6 plus magic damage.
Oh, what's my mana, by the way?
Oh, that is an excellent question. That is the next thing on the list. You get 10 plus your magic plus 1d6 mana.
Let's get this other 1d6. Roll again. We got 3.
All right.
So my magic's a 1, so that's 4 plus, what was it, 10?
10.
So 14.
Yeah.
14 mana to start.
Okay, that's not the best, but we'll get there.
The spells aren't super expensive once you start out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. You get magic training. You know 3 spells.
Ooh, didn't I get to choose them, or?
You do get to pick them. They do have a couple of starting packages as suggestions, but you're really free to pick any spell that you qualify for. This is a fairly long list. Did you want to do this now, or should we do this off camera?
Well, how about we'll leave it a mystery, and when we start up on the the adventure, I'll get the report on what one I choose, because I don't want to be sitting here for like 20 minutes choosing the best abilities.
Exactly. Fair enough.
This is the part where you look in that part of the book. Pick 3 that you're able to pick, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just going to be your starting 3.
Yep.
So, to people who are now pausing the video and quickly looking up what abilities they want, do you have any recommendations or something like that?
Well, why don't I turn my resident mage?
Huh.
I think I mentioned one of them was rock armor.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that's big time important, because that's how you're going to survive hits. They have a couple of builds in the book. They've got a balanced build, which has one attack spell and a healing spell and rock armor, and that's generally good for a beginner. It really depends on what kind of mage you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And they do have some that are themed for specific kinds of magic. The balanced mage is Arcane Bolt, Heal, and Rock Armor.
Yeah.
You have a Blasty spell, you can heal people, and you can defend yourself.
There's a couple other different types, though.
The Creation Mage has Glyph of Paralysis.
Some of us may have started this way.
Heal, and Heroic Offense.
Mm-hmm.
So you can buff your friends, you can heal your friends, and you can set up a defensive spell to paralyze people. But your only real offensive option is your Arcane Lance.
Yeah, and the Glyph of Paralysis takes a while to set up. It
takes a minute to cast.
Forethought kind of deal.
Yeah, okay.
You could be an Entropy Mage, and they give you Daze, Drain Life, and Weakness. This is mostly nerfing enemies, but it doesn't give you any support tactics. Primal magic is a primal mage. You'd have like Flame Blast, Rock Armor, and Winter's Grasp, which is like you got your Fire Boom, you got your Ice Boom, and you got your Rock Clothes.
Rock Clothes.
Rock Clothes. And definitely get those Rock Clothes. But that's more like if you want to kill things, that's a pretty solid way to go. And then they've got the Spirit Mage starter pack, which has Mind Blast, Spell Shield, and Walking Bomb. That's a pretty solid setup, but there's no healing, and it doesn't really help you with like more physical immediate threats. That said, Mind Blast is hilarious, and I love it.
Mind Blast
Ren is still
awful.
bitter.
Mind Blast is dumb.
You're just mad because I'm very good at finding people with low strength scores to knock down eternally.
It is a very infamous spell in this game. Because unlike the video games where the Mind Blast radiates from your character, in the tabletop game you can put it anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, anywhere within a specific range. But that means that you can that if you've got somebody who you want to keep down,
like an enemy caster, for example.
Enemy caster, for example, you can throw a Mind Blast at them. They fall if they don't make the test. They like lose their major action.
Yeah.
And they fall down. So then they have to spend their minor action
you can do it
up.
You can do it again the next
you can
round.
Keep doing it to just keep them stun locked.
I may have done some of this, just a smidge.
Just a smidge.
You sound so proud.
I am extremely proud.
I'm so annoyed.
I think Ren's favorite day.
That arcane horror was supposed to be a real cool fight.
Instead, it got a case of the fall downs.
Couldn't even get to you because you
get
had
up.
a dang force field.
I did have force field. Life is hard.
I'm so sorry.
I think your favorite thing was when you finally got to turn that against me, and you had a mage that kept trying to use knockdown on me because I had no strength.
Is fair play.
Except I had friends, so that was the difference.
You did have friends.
That helped.
Finally, as a mage, you also get starting talent. One starting talent.
You get starting talent.
You get talent to start. You become a novice in one of the following talents: chirurgy, which lets you heal people, which lets you like physically heal people and with like potions and salves and herbalism.
Oh, okay.
Linguistics, which lets you learn new languages. Lore, which lets you get extra information out of making lore tests.
Yeah, I would recommend chirurgy or lore.
I'm a trash healer, so I guess I'm gonna go with lore.
All right.
Yeah.
I have
Perfect.
to pick lore. That's what my channel's about. Yeah, what am I on? No, okay, we're doing lore. Where do I write that?
I think if that one's got the second page, I think the second page should include a box for talents. And if not, I think you can just put it like in the big empty box that's like class powers.
Okay. Looks like I wrote love. There we go. We'll do lore. Okay.
Love.
Okay. Love. All my characters.
Love.
That's the thing you can be in fantasy.
Oh yeah, that is a thing we do in our campaign
boy.
setting. You can be a novice of love.
Oh no.
It's good stuff.
Oh no.
All right.
All right. What next?
Next, we get your equipment.
What next?
Most people have a specific like loadout that they start with. You get a backpack, some traveling clothes, and a water skin. You get a backpack, some traveling clothes, and
Mm-hmm.
if you are a mage, you get one weapon and a staff for your arcane weapons. You get one weapon.
So I got a water skin, backpack, traveling, and a staff.
Yep.
What else do I get?
Let's see. Because you are a mage, that's it. But you also get to start with 50 plus 3d6 silver pieces to buy additional gear. Because you are a mage.
Ooh, sweet. Okay, so 3d6, 10. No, 9. I can count.
All right.
So you have 59 silvers, but there's a lot of stuff in there, so that's something that may have to happen off screen.
Mm-hmm.
You
We'll
can
do that
buy a
off
whole
screen.
wheel of cheese.
What's the nicest cheese? 59 silver combined.
I mean, you could buy cheese. It is
I
actually.
did.
I'm pretty sure it's actually in here.
It is. No, I said it for a reason. You can buy cheese.
You absolutely.
I
can
also
buy
bought a
cheese.
pound of candy. Nope.
Yep, a pound of cheese is 25 coppers.
Okay, so we're just gonna buy like
You could
2
buy
of that,
cheese. It is
and then
actually
I'll have 9 copper.
Awesome.
The coppers.
You said copper.
Yeah, coppers.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
1 silver is 100 coppers. And
Oh,
one
We're gonna
gold
buy
is-
so much.
1 gold is
So
100
much
silvers.
cheese.
You're gonna have a lot of cheese.
I'm gonna recommend that you buy a healer's
You
kit,
could buy a wagon. Oh yes,
which should
I don't think I
be
have that much money.
professional gear.
here. It is 25 silvers. So almost half of your money might go towards a healer's kit.
Okay, but if you say it's worth it, then I'll trust you.
I would say so because you can't make heal checks without one.
And you do need to actually be holding it, like have it out in your
Yeah,
hands.
you
to
can't
use it.
just. The thought of the fact that it's in your bag is not comforting enough to let you be able to do it. Like,
Okay.
Thank God I brought those bandages. Let me put my hand over this wound. That'll fix it.
and that thunderstorm. I
After
don't know if that's
equipment,
getting
we
picked
figure
up.
out your defense and your speed. There should be a box for defense, I think, near the top of the
Oh,
page.
it's gonna be
Yeah, I
rough.
see it.
You have a 0.
Yeah,
dex.
it's 10 plus your dex.
Oh, okay. So
So-
it's 10.
Yeah,
If you have a shield, then you add your shield bonus to the defense
But you
score.
don't.
But that's
Yeah, I
mostly
don't got
going
one
to
of
be
them.
probably a warrior thing.
Mhm.
I guess you could buy a shield if you wanted.
you're not proficient with it.
Yeah.
That's true. Let's see. Your speed, because you are an elf, is 12 plus your dexterity.
So 12.
So 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you have an armor penalty because you're wearing armor, you subtract the armor penalty from your speed. But you are a mage, so you do not. Well, you could wear armor. It's just it makes your spells more expensive.
Yeah, I'll pass on that one then.
Yeah, don't do it. It's a bad choice.
All right. Next step is picking your character's name. And I don't know if you've got one in the chamber already, but for folks who don't, they do in fact actually have, starting on page 41, they have several lists of example names.
From various cultures.
They've
Well,
got
fantasy cultures.
Yeah, they got Ander names, Antivan names, Chastened names, Ferelden names, and they even have Kunari and Talvashoth names. They include some Barasod ranks.
I feel like my character is going to be from Tevinter. That
Okay.
seems right to me.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I'm drawn to Reynalda, and I'll go by Reyn, maybe.
All
I
right.
like that. Yeah.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Do that.
The last step is your goals and your ties.
Ooh.
And these kind of help to flesh out the character and give them some context for the world that they're stepping into. Your goals is basically what the character wants.
Mm-hmm.
You can also get meta with it and write down what the player wants for the character.
Mm-hmm.
But it is good shorthand to have 2 short-term goals and a long-term goal. The
Okay.
short-term goals are something that they maybe could reasonably do, like find my lost brother or learn to speak Elven. Maybe not in your case specifically, but
Yeah.
I think that's one of the options
I'm
they
the
give.
best at Elven.
I think that's one of the examples they give. But you can also, but your long-term goals do not have to be realistic.
Like, one of mine was start an elven nation.
It happened.
I got there,
But yeah, that was
but
a,
it took a long time.
that was a
Okay.
campaign focus kind of goal.
All right. So So for my character concept, what do you think I should go for?
Let's see.
Yeah, an escaped slave from Tevinter. That's also an apostate.
Okay. Ooh.
Could have done
What?
an escaped slave back
That
then.
actually occurs. It actually reminds me that there actually is an escaped elven slave background.
Oh well, we can't re-record this, so we're just gonna go with what we got.
Fair enough. It would increase your strength. Let's.
You're mad.
It increases your strength by one. So yeah,
Gross, no.
maybe not. Maybe we'll stick with what we got.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Let's see. You're an escaped elven slave. You're living on the run, I suppose.
I would say so,
If
yes.
you're a mage, then you would be a valuable slave. So there's probably still people looking for you.
Okay, so maybe like one of the goals is stop being hunted.
Yeah.
Hunts the hunters.
Elude capture
Yeah.
long enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Does this character want to find some family? Like find a clan that they can join, or maybe just find a community that they can be safe in?
Yeah, maybe like she doesn't know of any family that exists, so maybe like a found family
Yeah.
Okay.
type of deal. So find a family or make a family, whatever.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Yeah. That's a pretty big theme in Dragon Age.
Well, let's say those are short-term goals, maybe. So let's.
So,
Would you say those aren't short-term goals?
those both sound pretty solid short-term goals.
Okay. So then, what's a good long-term like?
Let's see. The example they give for the city elf example they give is destroying the alienages and finding a new homeland for her people.
Maybe you could try to bring down the slave trade in Tevinter.
Ooh, yeah.
That one's fun.
Yeah.
I feel like that one's good. Bring down that slave trade.
All right, sounds good. And then your ties is a bit harder to do since we don't have other people making characters around the table. Ties is just who your character knows already, which can also be useful for like if you have made a backstory for these characters and you made some NPCs in that backstory, you can write down those ties. Just you can like write down names and the relationships, but we can figure out.
We can figure out ties as we go. I haven't built anything yet.
Yeah, it's like the start of the next thing. We can hash that out.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right.
And that's a character.
So you've got Reyn.
All right. That wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
Escaped
doable.
elven slave, and she's ready to rock.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess are we? Is that it?
That's it.
Are we ready to play now?
Yeah, you're ready to play.
All right. Well, I guess we'll have to wait to actually play in part 2.
Yes, we will.
But well, thank you so much for sitting down and explaining this to me. I feel very less intimidated by this now.
Okay, good.
Awesome. We're glad we could help.
Glad we can help.
Thank you.
I guess thank you for having us on. This was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you for agreeing to join and like also being so kind to wait 6 months.
It's been
I feel really bad about that.
Oh, no worries. We'll just have to get this next one out soon.
Exactly, and we'll probably have some friends along to do it with.
Yeah.
Yes, that way we have a good old party so you guys can see all the party dynamics and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
It's a good idea to have at least one of every class, and then the last one's gravy.
Where can the people find you guys?
Oh, yeah.
We actually, I don't know if I actually mentioned this, and I don't know if you've actually seen, but the Wonders of Thedas is expanding. It is now called the Adventure Game Interest Series.
Adventure Game Engine
Interest Series. Thank you. I always forget that word. I feel bad.
That's how you make the word ages.
Yeah, that's how we make the word AGEIS. We are now called the AGEIS. All the stuff for Wonders of Thedas is still up, so you can still listen to it. We've got 78 episodes that is just about the Dragon Age role-playing game, so you can still check out all the hard work that we did since, April
2016.
2016.
It was a year after we got married, almost to the day.
We've been at it.
Yeah.
So, we've got a lot of stuff that's already down in there. So if you'd like to go see it, you can of course find it at wondersofthedaspodcast.wordpress.com. You can listen to it on just about anywhere you can find podcasts.
Yeah.
It's still called The Wonders of Thedas, but we'll be starting a new show called the Adventure Game. Yes, we are starting a new show called the Adventure Game Engine Interest Series. We've got an actual play started. We've got 5 episodes of the prologue for that actual play out, and this is taking place in a world that I wrote.
It's very fun.
We're having a lot of fun.
We're using a traditional fantasy age for it. So.
And it is being customized for our use.
Yes.
I do plan to do another, like a Dragon Age actual play, but I really want to do high-level Dragon Age actual play.
Yes.
Ooh.
Bring back the ladies.
Yes. First, I gotta find something that we can actually do at high-level Dragon Age games, besides going into the Fate and doing weird stuff.
I mean, Fight God is pretty much what we have left. So
Pretty much.
You can find another Tevinter Magister, or like what
Well, I already
ancient
kind
bastard
of toe-to-toed with the Archon a little bit, so...
Oh, well, there you go.
The Archon helped you guys.
Yes,
in that
no,
fight.
I mean, we had a face down.
Oh yeah, that's true. We could have you guys fight Archon.
I don't really want to fight him. He doesn't want to fight me, moreover. I showed up in his dreams.
You did show up in his dreams.
Dream sending is a wild spell.
Dream sending is a wild spell. Can just kind of take your night to make some threats against
And
people.
there's no resisting it either. They will have that dream if they fall asleep.
So we'll still be talking. Well, we're not talking about Dragon Age as much. We will definitely still be talking about the Dragon Age role-playing game. We still got some backgrounds and some things to cover. And of course, if any news comes out about it, then we're going to cover it. But we'll also be talking about Blue Rose. We'll also be talking about Modern Age and Fantasy Age and the Expanse RPG and any other and a couple other things. They've got the Lazarus comic book series is being used as a setting for Modern Age. They're releasing their own setting. Green Ronin is writing their own setting for Modern Age called Threefold, which sounds real sick. So there's lots of Age content to talk about, and dang, like I thought there was a lot of stuff being made for Dragon Age. There's there's individual collections of people who also make stuff for all the other games. So there's a lot of fan created content to show off there too. There's a whole wiki, and it's a big wiki.
Oh wow!
Just fun. A lot of it is actually folks just porting stuff from Dragon Age that didn't make it into Fantasy Age. But we're gonna talk about as much of it as we can get our hands on.
Yeah. So thank you.
That sounds really awesome, guys. Go check it out because I consider them the one-stop shop for anything Dragon Age role-playing game. So I'm sure you'll soon become the Age system one-stop shop.